All right, welcome back to the Contrarians. Welcome to another showcase edition of our series. This is where we get to delve into a little bit of the folks that join our panels, who otherwise we might not get to know them very well. We just see their opinions on all the bands and topics that we talk about, but this gives us a chance to kind of get behind the individual and find out a little bit more about what makes them tick. So we got Bret. How you doing, Bret?
I'm doing great, Marco. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, and happy to have you here. And it's going to give our folks at home a chance to get to know you better. So this is excited. I'm interested. I'm interested in getting to chat with you, learning a bit more about your backstory and what brought you onto the Contrarian. So what
Yeah.
first made you interested in music? And I have a feeling I know what the answer is, but go ahead. Awesome.
Yeah.
Look at all that stuff you got. That's so cool, man.
Yeah. So this is my dad. This is my dad's office. And this is just one part of his massive basement. Like I know you were nice enough to upload both the videos that I put out a couple months ago showcasing the basement and everything like that. This is everything that was shown in that first video. And there's like, there's just a whole entertainment center. You have more stuff over there. You got posters, you got records. Oops, let me fix that.
What's on the floor?
Yeah, that's a carpet.
Oh,
Sorry,
nice.
my legs. Yeah, that's a big carpet. And like a lot of this stuff, not a lot, but like something like that, like that's not even like an official Kiss thing, like it was just something that he found online and he ordered off of like Amazon or something like that. But yeah, this is your answer right there of how I got into music, pretty much. I think we can end it. So I've talked
Yeah.
about
Your
no.
dad's obviously a mega Kiss fan. Do you know what his connection to Kiss is? How he kind of got interested in that? Obviously, it had an influence on you.
I wish he was home. I would have been able to ask him. But I feel like he kind of got into it the same way a lot of other people his age got into it. Early 70s. You're into superheroes and cartoons and everything like that, and then you see these four guys, that look like real life superheroes, and you it appeals to you, and then you delve into it and you're like, oh man, there's this whole other world of music and stuff like that. So I think for him that's definitely how he got into it. For me, I was just born into it. It was just something that had always been around. um some of my earliest memories of listening to music is listening to Kiss, whether it was listening to CDs, cassettes, or like having the home videos, the old home video cassettes on, like and also he had like a lot of bootleg video cassettes where I remember there was one that I always used to watch called Kiss Evolution, and it was from like 1974 to like maybe 78. I feel like you might know what I'm talking
I
about.
have it.
Okay, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like I think
Kiss
the very
Vision.
what?
Was it Kiss Vision?
I think
A
so. Where
visual
like
evolution. It was
yeah,
73 or 74 to 79, I think.
yeah, like the very last thing on the I distinctly remember the very last thing on the VHS is an excerpt of the Tom Snyder interview. It's not the whole thing, but it's like an excerpt. I used to watch that. I used to watch the hell out of that, and like a bunch of other, because aside from Kiss, like some of my favorite bands growing up were like Iron Maiden and Queensryche. You know, uh, those three actually, like really mainly. So I would if he had like anything that I could watch or listen to, like that's you were a little kid and parents usually put on like cartoons or something like that. It's like, no, I want to watch this Kiss VHS for the umpteenth time.
Mhm.
Um, and then they were my first concert. I was, I think I was 8. Yeah, I was 8. December 28th, 1996, at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York. It was my first concert, and my sister's first concert, who I think was 5 at the time. And I remember they were Christmas gifts for us. It was the reunion tour.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, it's like, and speaking of Kiss, today when we're recording this, the tickets for the last 2 shows just went on sale for the 2 dates that they're doing at the Garden. Um,
Did you
but
get one?
no, I did not get them yet. My parents got tickets to the first night, because obviously Ticketmaster's, and at this point Ticketmaster is worse than the scalpers. Um, I know they were able to get tickets for the first night through a secondary market website like StubHub or something like that. Me, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait and see, because I know like the show's gonna sell out, but I know there's gonna be a lot of tickets you'll be able to get on like those secondary market sites. I would like to go to one. I would, obviously you want to go to the last one, but if I could just go to either of them, I would be happy with them. It's been a while since I've seen them. When was the last time you saw Kiss live?
Oh, I saw them twice on the End of the Road tour. When they came
Okay,
to Toronto the first and second time, and I think they were both in 2019.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if that
So
was I wonder if that was around the time I saw them, because I saw them in August of 2019.
yeah, I don't remember when, but they were both in, I saw them twice, and then like, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Like, I'd like to go see them again. They are coming to Toronto one more time, but like, if I don't go, I won't be that disappointed. And if
Yeah.
I do go, I think I might wait till the day of and see if the tickets are just really cheap.
Yeah, that's what I do now. Like I saw Metallica over the summer, and tickets were expensive because they were playing the stadium where where the Buffalo Bills play. And I waited day of, and day before, and I was able to get a general admission floor seat for like half the price. And I got there early enough, and I was on the barricade, which was like one of the coolest things. It's like, as a Metallica fan, it's one of the coolest things you
Yeah.
could experience. But I would love to see them on this one final time. But at the same time, like, if I don't, I don't. It's not. It's funny. Like, obviously I'm a huge fan, but it's not really that big of a deal to me in the end. I can understand why it would be so important to someone like my parents. Um, but yeah, it's music has always played such a very important role in my life. Growing up listening to the stuff that my parents would listen to, getting older, and then like I feel like a lot of people, if you have like an older sibling, at a certain point you'll start getting into stuff that they listen to, and that's how I started getting into some of the more like harder, aggressive music. Like you know bands like Slipknot and stuff like that era of music. And then from there, gradually, because of one of my older sisters getting into hardcore music, um, going to hardcore shows when I was like 13 that were happening in the basement of a Jewish synagogue in Brooklyn, like someone like me having absolutely no right to be there because those shows were wild. Obviously not telling my parents that my sister was bringing me to a show where like I might get kicked in the head. And then from there, wanting to venture out and start playing music. I don't know if I would technically still consider myself a drummer. If I got behind a set, I definitely still know how to play. But when I was younger, high school, playing in, starting bands, playing in bands and stuff like that. And still now to this day, obviously constantly going to shows, constantly checking out new music, wanting to go back to school for history and hopefully making music history a part of that journey. You take a look at my bookshelf, and the majority of it is like music history books and memoirs, and I got a couple of Martin's books
Nice.
on there, which pretty much how I discovered, which I'm pretty sure is how I discovered this page. I was trying to think about it because I remember watching one of the other showcases that you did with somebody, and you'd ask them like how you came across the page, and for the life of me I can't remember. I do remember the first video I watched, which was, I believe it was the video you guys did on Love Is for Suckers.
Okay, right on. Did that
Yeah.
piss you off, or were you right on board with us?
No, you know what? I can't remember. I'm trying to think about it. I can't remember what you said. I would have to go back and see what you guys said, but I do remember getting into conversation via YouTube comments with maybe you, I don't know, about how I felt that there were a lot of songs on that could have passed as like 80s Kiss songs.
Mm-hmm. I definitely made that point either in the video or somewhere because I felt the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wish I knew which songs, but there were a couple where I'm like, oh, this could easily have been on Crazy Nights.
for sure.
And then obviously going back and seeing all the videos that you guys did, and then joining the Patreon, and then being lucky enough to do videos where I could talk about Kiss for an hour.
Yeah, I definitely remember the first time you came on our channel to do a panel, and like I remember in your background, I think you had maybe some Kiss stuff, but I remember some wrestling stuff, and I remember thinking like, yeah, this is a dude I need to connect with. Like we have a lot in common here, you know?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying that's pretty much for us is like in terms of a friendship, it's like, yeah, it's definitely Kiss and professional wrestling, which
Yeah.
if there's two things that I could talk about endlessly until people do not want to hear about it anymore, it's professional wrestling and Kiss.
Yeah, and of course the famous crossover with the demon character in WCW.
Oh my God. Oh, you know what? I wish I had it, but it's in the other room. There's an autographed 8x10 of the demon and
That's
full makeup and
amazing.
costume.
Dale
Yeah.
Torberg.
Yeah. Yeah, he still shows up at the conventions in full getup and costume gimmick and everything like that. I've never had a chance to meet him. My parents have met him a bunch of times. He's been on the cruise. Like he's a super nice dude, and he's very, you figure the Demon's career in wrestling was like maybe 2 years, if that. So he's still very appreciative that there's a very small demographic of Kiss and wrestling fans that like still care, and like if he's at a convention or something like that, they'll pay the money to meet him or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So your dad was obviously a big Kiss fan and started his collection back probably in the 70s. When did you start delving into your own interests in music and collecting your own? I'm assuming you had some kind of a CD collection or something at some point. Like when did that happen? And what were the first kind of bands? I know you said Queensryche and Iron Maiden, but like, can you
Yeah.
tell me a bit about that and when you kind of started getting interested in music on your own rather than, oh,
Uh,
look at all this Kiss stuff my dad loves. You know what I mean?
I can actually tell you the very first CD I ever bought for myself with my own money, and I believe it was Blink-182, Enema of the State.
Nice. Yeah, that album
You
was
know,
huge when that came out.
yeah, and it's like that came out in 1999, so I had just graduated fifth grade, which is still probably a little too young to be listening to them, given some of the song, lyrical content, but like, and we're the same age, so I feel like our generation was like the prime demographic for those bands that came out. It was like we were ready to hear like different stuff and just all these different like mixtures of music. But I would say around like sixth grade, which I was probably like 12, 13, was when I started venturing out on finding out bands of my own. And obviously once the internet became more of a prominent thing, like being able to go on websites like YouTube, but then even social media, like social media is so important for finding out new bands. When I was growing up, like in high school, and even now, it's like every day I'll come across a band, like somebody will post something or I'll see something, oh, I've never heard of that band, like let me check that out. But in terms of like a collection and stuff like that, I you look at all the stuff that my dad has, and he focuses on just like one thing, where you've seen pictures of like what my old room had looked like in my old apartment, and having like a little bit of everything. So collecting wrestling figures, collecting stuff that is related to like movies or TV, like TV, movie, video games and stuff like that. But I feel like I trailed off. I feel like I trailed off just a little bit. I apologize.
That's okay.
But you were saying how and for me, like music in terms of like when I kind of got into it on my own and like how it evolved from there. But even when I was growing up, like magazines were still a big thing. So I remember buying magazines like Metal Hammer and Revolver magazine, like Revolvers, and those magazines were very much how I got into some of the more heavier, aggressive stuff that was coming out in like the early mid 2000s, like like I guess you could call it metalcore. Bands like Killswitch Engage, Lamb of God, like that new wave of American heavy metal. And then from there, like listening to these bands and then being like, okay, well, this band was influenced by that band, so now I'm going to go back and check out that band. And it was just like a massive just tree of just constantly finding out and coming across new bands. And that was something that was so exciting for me because, growing up, I'm listening to essentially everything my dad's listening to, which isn't a bad thing because, they were all great bands. But for me to get older and start, finding out new bands. And it was always funny when like I would come across something that like was around like when my dad was younger and he didn't even listen to them. Like I think a good example is I'm a huge Frank Zappa fan.
Nice.
And I remember first getting into Frank Zappa and like coming into my room one day and I'm listening to, I think like it was like Overnight Sensation or something like that. And he's like, what is this? And I'm like, Frank Zappa. He's like, how the hell did you get into Frank Zappa? Like, I don't even listen to Frank Zappa, So it was cool also, aside from discovering new bands, like going back and discovering older bands that weren't really played in my household, like another example is I absolutely love 80s new wave. 70s pop, 80s new wave. Like I love all that stuff. I can't tell you how I got into it. I don't think I can remember. It's definitely something that wasn't played in my house growing up, but that was just as exciting as discovering new bands that are coming out today, as discovering bands that had by that point had already been around for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, that's one thing I admire about you. Well, not just you. I mean, a lot of the folks on that come on our panels and stuff like this have a deep appreciation for music and discovering new music. I'm constantly seeing you posting on like your social media pages, like lists of Spotify bands that you're discovering and finding and stuff like this. And like, so that's something I appreciate about you. When you're in that process of like finding new stuff, like what are you looking for and how long does it take before you realize you like a band? Like, do you listen to a whole album? Is it part of a song? Like, what's that process like?
Like I will I put together, I will search out like, YouTube channels or, like I said, magazines and stuff like that. I'll look through like all the new albums that are coming out and I'll just listen to a band like kind of like back in the day, like people would get into bands because the album cover looked cool. Like that's still much a thing. Like I'll look up a band and like if the band name sounds cool or like really ridiculous or the album looks cool, like I'll listen to it. And sometimes I'll put on an album and I'll be like, this absolutely sucks, but I'll listen to all of it just to kind of give it the benefit. Just like maybe there's something at the end that could pull me in. But for the most part, like I could listen to a record like maybe one or two times and like know like, okay, like I'll like this. And then if they're a new band, I'll be like, okay, well, this is cool. This is a band that I could kind of keep an eye out for and see if there's new stuff coming out. But then there are many times where it's a band that is new to me, and then I search them up on Spotify or YouTube or something like that, and they have had 3-4 albums out, and I'm like, oh, this is even better. And that's always for me that I love when that happens. But that's pretty much like how I try and find new music. I'll find websites. Actually, I think can't think of it off the top of my head, but there's this one page where they'll do like a monthly video of like here are all the top metal album, like hard rock heavy metal albums that are coming out, and then they'll give like maybe like 5 or 6 like underground bands, so to speak, that they feel like people should pay attention to and stuff like that. And that's always fun too, like finding these bands from like different countries that really, unless you actually search for them and you look on the internet, like you're not gonna hear about them, and on like a mainstream music website or maybe like a magazine. Like you'll get lucky with like Metal Hammer because Metal Hammer is based out of the UK, so I'll find out about a lot of European bands, a lot of European bands there through outlets like that.
Very cool. When you discover a band that's like a legacy band or a band that has like a bunch of albums, like where do you start? Are you like a first album guy? Are you like a greatest hits guy? Like how do you get into a band that has a bunch of albums already?
You know what? The perfect example for that would be the Eagles. I didn't get into the Eagles until 2018. Like I knew Hotel California and like the hits and stuff like that, but like actually getting into them, I didn't become a fan until 2018 when I had watched the history of the Eagles. And for that, it's like I kind of what I would do is I'll either look up and see like what their like quintessential record is. So for the Eagles, I knew it was like, okay, Hotel California. So I'll listen to Hotel California. And then from there, maybe I'll check out a compilation or I'll just kind of work my way through, and trying to like, okay, well, these are the albums that fans say you should really listen to, and then like this is the album that they're like, you could skip this one, or maybe you should give this one give this one a shot. And like I love doing that when I have friends that get into, because I like my friend group is the majority of my friend group is like modern music, like a lot of like heavier like hardcore and punk and stuff like that. So I'll have people come up to me and be like, hey, like I want to get into this band, but I don't know where to start. And I'll be like, okay, well then you gotta start here and then go here. Avoid that one. Definitely give this one a shot. You might like this one after a couple tries, but I would say for me that's how I would navigate like the discography of getting into a band maybe 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
And especially like I mentioned Frank Zappa before, like I got into Frank Zappa in 2010 maybe. So he had by that point he had been dead for over 20 years, but he also had like 50 albums out, and they're still they were still
they're still coming out.
Yeah,
That's
like
unreal.
that was really tough. Like I was like, I have no idea what to start. Like I think I started with Apostrophe because that was the one everybody told me to start
That's
with.
the
Like
classic.
start with Apostrophe or Overnight Sensation. Like start with
Hot
either of those.
Rats.
Huh?
Hot Rats.
Oh yeah, but those are the ones I started, and then I worked, and then like I was like, okay, well, like this one looks like it could be pretty cool. I'll check this one out, and then like slowly but surely, like making my way through at least like all the important stuff. Like I wasn't gonna listen to all 6 volumes of "You Can't Do That Live on Stage" or whatever those albums are called. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can clearly skip in his catalog because a lot of it's the same. It's I love a song like trying to think off the top of my head, like you can find one song on a studio album and then there'll be like 8 live versions of it, and it's like I don't need to hear
There's
all
lots
other
of
8,
live stuff. Yeah.
a lot of live stuff. And I had got into Zappa because of Zappa Plays Zappa. I saw them
Yeah.
open.
That's a great DVD too.
Yeah, I saw them open up for Dream Theater
Cool.
on the Progressive Nation tour. I think it was like maybe 2008, 2009. And like I said, I knew the name Frank Zappa. I had no idea what he sounded like, and then I saw that and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then going home, and the next day downloading everything I can.
See, I
Which like no, what were
sorry,
you saying?
you might have froze for a second there. I thought you were finished.
Yeah, no, yeah. I was asking what you were gonna say.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, see, for me, like when I'm discovering like bands and stuff, I used to look at when I was in high school, I used to get like greatest hits. Like remember those 20th century things? They were gray, and yeah, I could find those for pretty cheap.
Yeah, or
Like
like
White
the
Snake, The
Essential.
Who. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's how I got into the Clash, because like the Essential Clash came out. It's like a 2-disc CD, and I actually know, I'm sorry, it was called Clash Live on Broadway. But yeah, like that's how I would like get into a lot of these older bands, because I would see like a greatest hits or something like that, like when I was younger at least.
Yeah, that's how I started when I was in high school, getting into bands that I didn't was like, oh, I kind of know what Whitesnake is. Let me pick up this 20th century thing from Zellers or Kmart for, $8 or whatever, right? But when I really started getting into music, I started feeling like I wanted to start with the first album and kind of work from there, because I felt like getting greatest hits was like wasting the songs almost. I don't know if I feel like it's hard to explain that to somebody who's not like a deep music fan. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. No, I could definitely understand that with certain bands. Like there are definitely certain bands, like a band like Kiss or Iron Maiden or like Metallica, like any of those legacy acts. Like if you're gonna delve into them, a greatest hits does not do it justice. But then you have a band like Motley Crue, where you can get away with listening to the greatest hits.
True.
Let's be honest. Like for me, and I like Motley Crue, but if somebody came to me and was like, what should I listen to? I'd be like, you'll be fine, just listen to greatest hits.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you, with your collection, like, are you an eBay guy or do you like finding stuff out in the wild?
A little bit of both. With my Bill and Ted stuff, I'm predominantly eBay because it's very hard. Like that's such a neat like that's the one thing I have like the biggest collection of, and it's not even that big, but like the in terms of like most stuff is my Bill and Ted stuff where I'll very rarely like I'll go into like maybe a thrift store or a flea market or like an old school toy store collectibles and see like they'll have the old Kenner figures, but even then they're like $200 a pop.
Wow.
And you get that on eBay as well. But certain things like that specifically, I'll do eBay only. But then in terms of like wrestling stuff and music specifically, like that's so much easier to find out in the wild. I remember I went to a flea market maybe like a year or two ago, and there was a guy that had a whole table of old WWF stuff. And unfortunately, he was selling it for way too much than what I would have been willing to spend. Like he had like he had like the press release packet that they would send out to TV stations for WrestleMania 3. And he wanted like $400 for it. But yeah, music and wrestling is definitely easier for me to find out in the wild. And sometimes you'll find some good stuff on eBay. So, but that's kind of like how I navigate in terms of like, finding stuff for my collection. And then also if I'm in like Target, because I'll still buy new stuff that comes out. So like if I'm in Target and I see like, like a couple years ago, they re-released the whole line of the old He-Man figures, like the old school ones. So they'll put out new ones of those every so often. Which if I find one, I'll pick that up because I know if I try and find like a classic one, I'm going to be paying an arm and a leg for it.
Yeah, and He-Man's like collecting stamps.
Yeah,
so
yeah, and it's really funny like seeing what stuff turns out to be really expensive and then what stuff is like worth nothing. And unfortunately, one of the two things that I'm passionate about always fall in the category of being very expensive.
Yeah. Do you have a holy grail?
Do I have a holy
anything music related, non-music? Like what's the one thing you're like, oh, I wish I had that, or it's just out of reach financially, like I'll never be able to afford this?
Oh man, that's actually a really good question because I've never thought of that. It's like I was having this conversation with my dad the other day, and like his holy grail is the pinball machine. But oh, man, I don't know. Like, I guess because I like within the last couple of years, I got really big into collecting Bill and Ted stuff. I guess like I don't know if I would consider it a holy grail, but like getting the original Kenner figures like still in box and like really good condition would be a really big thing for me because I still have my Bill and Ted figures out of box and like the paint's chipped off and everything like that. But for that collectible, like yeah, that would definitely be it. But for music, I don't know. Like maybe some vinyls and stuff like that, but I've never like really sat that. I'm gonna have to like think about this now. Like, even like when we're done with this conversation, like if there's like specifically a holy grail for like a collectible or something that I want. Wow. Especially for music.
Does your dad have a holy grail?
Somebody asked him about somebody.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said the pinball machine.
Oh, no, that's like his holy grail of like if there's one thing that he doesn't have that he wants. But like a friend of mine had asked him recently, like, what's the thing like you're most proud of in terms of like collections and stuff like that? And he said probably they have the guitars, like he has the Gene bass.
Nice.
He has a stage played Tommy Thayer guitar. And then he said like he's also proud of like a lot of the stuff that he has that's still from the 70s. Like posters and stuff like that. Because the funny thing is like people see this and they're like, oh my God, like he must have been collecting this stuff forever. When in reality, a lot of the stuff that he has, aside from like the classic stuff, like I'm looking at it right now, like he has like the old school like dolls from the 70s and stuff like that. but the majority of the merchandise that he has in here in the other room have all came out within like the last maybe 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like Kiss was really big into releasing merchandise from 74 until about like 79, 80. Like the Acoin years, like they were big. That was especially from like 76 to 78. They had the Kiss radio, the Kiss bot bags, the every like anything you could think of, they had it. And then from 80 to 96, there was nothing. They had like, the occasional poster, the t-shirts and stuff like that. It wasn't until the reunion tour, and then they started like getting like these deals with like stores like Spencer's and stuff like that.
Yeah,
where it was
Spencer's.
Like, it was
they had a whole
like,
Kiss. They had a whole Kiss like corner when you went into Spencer's. It's
like
clocks and mugs and anything.
I'm looking through the room right now, and it's just like I could say like that like, oh, those are from Spencer's, like those busts are from, like, it's so like they would like that was like a Kiss central for Kiss merchandise in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And then like now, like obviously there's no really stores where you can buy stuff like that, and everything is online now. But that's the thing that people are like most shocked about, where like the majority of the stuff is, like I said, from the last like 25 years.
What's something that you're very contrarian on?
That the Elder's the greatest Kiss record of all time.
No. You're nuts.
No. Something I'm really contrarian on. I don't know. Like, I definitely have my opinions on stuff, but what are you contrarian on? So I can have an idea. What's something you would say you'd be really contrarian on?
I wasn't expecting to get asked that question. I don't know, because I found I used to have stupid opinions. Like I didn't like certain bands for like really stupid reasons, and then now I've come to really appreciate certain bands.
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm in the same thing. Like there are bands that I'll rag on, but it's, but then maybe like I'll be in the car and like, oh man, I really like this song. I want to put this song on my drive or something like that. Yeah, I don't know if I really have like any real like contrarian type opinion. I'm definitely like, this is a fact, and any of my friends will agree with it. Like I definitely have the more eclectic music taste within my friend group. Like I said, like the majority of my friends are into like, like hardcore death metal and stuff like that. And then, and then they do appreciate like some of the like legacy acts and stuff like that. But then here I am like talking about all the bands that I'm talking about and like loving all the bands that I listen to. Yeah, I don't
like, okay, here's one for me. Like I like Metallica, and I like Metallica albums, right? Especially the early stuff. I love that stuff. But I'm more of a fan of Megadeth. And I prefer listening to Rust in Peace over. I probably like Rust in Peace over any Metallica album, probably.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that's probably contrarian, but I don't dislike Metallica. I'm not putting them down. I just happen to like Megadeth a little bit more. Maybe that's contrarian.
You know what? I actually do have a contrarian. I do not like Slayer. I don't know if that would be. I out of the big four of thrash metal, they are at the bottom, and I can think of 15 other bands that I would put in their place, because I just don't think. I never saw what was special about them. You look at a band like Metallica, and even like a band like, Anthrax, where, they change their sound throughout the year to kind of keep them fresh and everything like that. Megadeth, not so much, here and there sometimes, but like Slayer had, in my opinion, Slayer has put out the same album from when Show No Mercy came out to when the last album came out. Like I went to go see Slayer on their farewell tour because I was able to get a lawn seat for $10, and I was there to see every other band except them. It was like Anthrax, Lamb of God, Testament, Behemoth. I was psyched about all those bands, and Slayer came on, and I was just like, I'm gonna go get a beer.
Wow. Interesting.
So I would say, yeah, and Slayer's one of those bands that fans are passionate about. Like they have some crazy fans. So when I say like, yeah, no, I don't like Slayer. Then it'll you'll either get somebody to be like, oh yeah, no, I totally agree. Be like, oh, what do you mean you don't like Slayer? Like something ridiculous like that. You have the guys that yell Slayer after every. Yeah, they always have that one guy at shows that just yells Slayer. You know what I mean? Or it's just like that one guy that you'll always hear yell Freebird at a show.
What's something we don't know about you?
I feel like I'm in therapy again. No.
I'm gonna send you a bill after this.
Yeah. Something I don't.
Like you love like you have collections, you're into Bill and Ted, which I
Yeah.
kind of knew that before. You like wrestling, you're into Kiss, you're into music.
Yeah.
Like what's something we don't know? Like what's something
In terms of like my personality or just like things that I'm into?
anything. You like pineapple on pizza? Like anything.
I do actually. I do. I'll die on that hill. I like the Hawaiian pizzas that you can get from Domino's with the ham and pineapple on it.
Yeah, I do too. I was just teasing you when I said you're sick.
No, I don't know. Like I
like, did you go to school to be a veterinarian? Like, did you always want to, you know what I mean? Like just anything. What's something we don't know?
Yeah, no, I
did you ever write a book or anything?
No, I didn't write a book. You know what, honestly, I'm a shy person. I maybe that's something I don't know. Um, I in terms of like things that I'm into, I'm very open about myself. I maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, I had come to a point where I was like, I am just gonna be 100% apologetically myself, and not, obviously, I'm not like a terrible person, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna like start spewing like, any like really crazy like hate rhetoric or anything like that. But what for me is like what you see is what you get. Like I'm not afraid to admit that like, I'm a guy in my 30s, and I am not afraid to admit that like I love professional wrestling, and I love a band that's been around for 50 years of four guys that are old enough to be my grandparents that, wear 6-inch heels, leather, and grease paint. So, I'm definitely proud of like who I am as a person. But I don't know, like really thinking about it, I don't know if there's like anything in particular that like, because like, you follow me on, we're friends on social media and stuff like that. So you'll see like, sometimes I'll post some like weird stuff, but like, that's just me. I want, if you're going to become friends with me, or you're going to want to get to know me, you have to know that, what you have to know everything. So yeah, I would say that, but I still stand on the whole shy thing, especially if it's like someone I'm just meeting. Like, like I remember like not shy, but like I was nervous like when we first hung out the first time, like and for the documentary screening.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And then like meeting Martin that day, because it's like for me, like I had known about Martin's work for like such a long time. Like I was buying his books when I was younger and stuff like that. So like getting to meet him, like I was like, oh my God, like this is pretty cool. And I don't know if I ever told you, but like I remember when we were waiting to watch the documentary, I was sitting next to him, and he looks over to me and he's like, those videos that you and Marco do are really good. He's like, when are you guys gonna do another Kiss video? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I hope we do one soon though now.
Yeah, I'm up for it anytime. But that was really cool when you came out to that, man. That meant a lot to me. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I'm glad that it was able to happen before I moved. Because obviously I'm out of Buffalo now. I'm back down East Coast. Where I lived for the majority of my life.
What does production mean to you?
Production? I would say the most important thing when it comes to music, it's weird, like bad production can make or break an album. I've listened to albums where the production had been so bad that it ruined it for me. But then I think of an album like Hotter Than Hell, where the production on that is not good. Like even the band had come out and said the production on it is not good. But for me, I think that's what makes the album so good, because it has like a real gritty production to it. It's there's a something about it. I don't know. I don't want to use the term like punk rock, but um, but there's just something very
Bit of
raw
an
about that
attitude
album.
to it.
Yeah, there's something very raw about that album that gives it a sense of attitude, um, that that makes the album what it is. But then I also think about, like, like I listen to black metal, and you listen to like a lot of these older black metal records, and they're just recorded so poorly because they were recorded on like a they sound like they were recorded on like a Fisher Price speak and play, you know.
Yeah.
But then like those are one of those albums where like you're not like the production's so bad it I don't want to say it's good. It's so bad that it's good, but it definitely gives it like its own sense of personality, I guess. That's the word I'm thinking of, like its own personality. But
Where are where are you on the Kiss Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing? Do you think that they all should have been included? Do you think they should have played together? Do you think it should have just been the original four? Like, where are you? Where do you stand on that?
I think everybody should have been included because everybody played a role. Well, actually, now I think of like obviously the four original, they deserve to be in, obviously. But then it's like I would go as far as saying like Eric deserved, both Erics, like Eric Carr, Eric Singer, Bruce. But then like we could kind of do without Vinny and Mark, like Mark didn't write anything. Like Mark was just a hired hand that played on the album in like three shows, and Vinny is Vinny. But I definitely feel like, the guys that had, you look at how long Bruce and Eric, and then Tommy and Eric, like at this point, Tommy and Eric have been in the band longer than any of the other members combined. You know what I mean? I feel like those guys should have been honored, because it's like you look at, I don't know if it was the same year or if it was like the year before, but like they had like Bruce Springsteen and the
It
E
was the
Street
same
Band.
year.
Yeah, it was. They had like literally they had like a guy that played triangle on like one song. Like he was a part of the induction ceremony. Like guys that literally have no right or business
That
being
must have been a
there.
hell of a song, though.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So it was, but it's. I said something about this a couple weeks ago, because every time like the Grammys come around and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions come around, like, obviously there's so many of these heavy metal bands that are not included or not recognized. And the way I look at it is like, obviously, like a sense of recognition is nice, but the special thing about hard rock and heavy metal is that it's always thrived on its own. Like, let's call it for what it is. Mainstream music media, these award shows and everything, they never cared about hard rock or heavy metal, and they never will. And that's completely fine, because we have done just great on our own without them. You know what I mean? Like you look at a band like Kiss, where there's this famous clipping of a guy saying like, well, let's hope they have a backup plan, because nobody's going to be talking about them in 5 years.
Mm.
And they're one of the biggest American hard rock bands of all time. You look at a band like obviously like Metallica putting out the Black Album definitely changed everything for them. But even just a band like them, like they're one of the biggest heavy metal bands of all time. That was I'd actually, now that I think about it, that's probably not a good example, because they've definitely gotten like a lot of like mainstream, a lot of mainstream like publicity and stuff, like recognition over the years. But you know what? A band like Rush, they were never a radio band, you know, like they had singles obviously through the 80s and everything like that. They were never a band. They didn't need MTV. They didn't need any of these things. And the perfect example of what I think about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is I think of Alex Lifeson's induction speech. Like he went up there and he said like gibberish for like 5 minutes because they didn't need that. They didn't need that, you know, that representation from an outlet like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for them to become the band that they are, because the fans are dedicated. The fans are what makes these bands. Those people that, you know, and don't get me wrong, you have a lot of people who do great jobs at making sure these bands, like somebody like Martin has always been somebody making sure these people get the recognition and stuff like that, which is great. But I think of like a you know, an outlet like the Grammys or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where we don't need them. You know what I mean? I don't care. Like, yeah, it'll be cool for Maiden to go in, but it's not going to change me. It's not going to change like my opinion. Like Maiden are still one of the greatest, you know, British heavy metal bands of all time, whether or not they're in the Hall of Fame. And obviously it was cool to, you know, see Kiss finally get in, but I also think like there were a lot of fans by that point that had thought like, you know, it was like too little too late.
You Empire or Mindcrime?
Oh, Mindcrime. But well, man, that's mine. I would say Mindcrime, but like Empire is such a great record too. You know what I mean? Like those first five, like the EP, Warning, Rage for Order, Operation Mindcrime, Empire. Like those are the like I put those up there with like a band like Metallica, where like their first 5 records are just all home runs. Like there's not a bad song on one of those records.
What do you think of when bands like Queensryche did it, Alice Cooper did it, when they do like Operation Mindcrime 2 or Welcome to My Nightmare, like number 2 and stuff like that? Like, what do you think about sequels to albums?
If done right, they could be good, but unfortunately,
has it ever been done right?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. Like I saw, like obviously when like Operation Mindcrime is up there with some of my favorite concept records, you know, like that and The Wall, and you know the 2112, like those concept songs and stuff like that. But when they announced Operation Mindcrime 2, I'm like, oh, I was like, okay, this could actually be like really cool. And then I listened to it and I was just like, oh, this isn't like, it's good. Like the first half of it's good and then it completely falls off. And I saw it live. I actually saw Queensryche on that tour where they did both Mindcrimes back to back, and getting through that second one was a bit rough because like the second half of the record, when like I think like Nicky, like spoiler alert, like when Nicky like kills himself or something like that, it's like this really just like really weird, slow, like experimental stuff that just doesn't fit with like the whole, you think of like Queensryche and like Operation Mindcrime and like how powerful of a record that is. It just completely falls off.
You like Killer or Number of the Beast?
I feel like you can't compare the two. Because like Maiden would say, I remember talking about this with somebody on the channel and them agreeing with me, like those first 2 Maiden albums, I would say are more punk records than they are like obviously they're like punk rock heavy metal records. And I feel like you can't really compare them to the Bruce the Bruce stuff, because it's just like Bruce came to the band and they just the band went to a completely different level. But like if I had to choose between like, you know, Number of the Beast and Peace of Mind or something like that, like I would probably go with Number of the Beast. But my favorite Maiden album is Somewhere in Time.
You NWO or DX?
DX. Because I was more of a WWF. I know you were a WCW kid. I was more of a WWF kid. So like Shawn Michaels, and then like that original iteration, and then like after WrestleMania 14, after WrestleMania 14, when Michaels set sail and it was Triple H, X-Pac, New Age Outlaws. Yeah, so I'd say I'm a DX guy.
Dynasty or Unmasked?
Unmasked.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What
it's
about
a good what?
No, go for it. Go for it.
It's
Finish
a
the
good
thought.
pop record. It's the album that, like, if I'm driving and it's like a nice spring day, that's the album that I have like the windows down and I have cranking it. Like it's a good springtime record.
What
I don't
about
know.
Crazy Nights or Hot in the Shade?
Crazy Nights.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
Well, I remember we talked about it on the Hot in the Shade album. Like on the Hot in the Shade um
Video that we
video,
did.
like
Yeah.
Hot in the Shade's ranked very, very low for me.
Yeah. That one's
Uh
gone up for me. That used to be like 0, and now it's gone up for
yeah.
me a lot.
Yeah. I know you guys, I know you and someone else are still mad that I said that like Dress to Kill was ranked fairly low
Oh
for me.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're nuts.
That's not a terrible record. It's just not an album that I listen to a lot. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because I
fair
think of
enough.
like the songs that I do like on that
It's
album.
short. They were low on material at that point. They had kind of
Yeah.
gone back to the well a bit for Hot in the Shade, and then I think Dress to Kill they were kind of shy. I mean, they even put like Wicked Lester songs on Dress to Kill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how far back they were reaching for that one.
And the thing
So,
is like I think of all the songs I do like off of Dress to Kill, I'd rather listen to the live versions on a live one, you
yeah,
know? Like
fair
a
enough.
song like She, Rock and Roll All Night, Rock Bottom.
Ren and Stimpy or Beavis and Butthead?
Oh man. Ren and Stimpy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first couple of seasons, the animation on that's like unreal.
Yeah.
That changed the animation for sure.
It's really weird because it was like I couldn't watch Beavis and like I couldn't watch Beavis and Butthead as a kid because it was on late night on MTV, but I could watch Ren and Stimpy because it would be on Nickelodeon at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then it's like I go back and watch it as a kid, as an adult, and I'm like, Ren and Stimpy was so much worse than Beavis and Butthead. Like
It's bizarre, yeah.
you watch some of those old Nickelodeon cartoons, like Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's
Like
Modern Life,
Doug and
and like there are some like adult stuff that go way over my head like when I was a kid, but I watch it and I'm like, how did this get on TV?
yeah, yeah, for
Like
sure.
there's the Rocko's Modern Life episode where he's a sex phone operator.
Yeah.
I'm like, this was on a children's station in the night. Well, obviously the 90s were a very different time, but it's just wild to think about how like I technically couldn't watch this one and this one was kind of better, but when you look at it and compare it now, it's just like I don't know.
Here's a Nickelodeon question for you. Legends of the Hidden Temple or Guts?
Oh man,
I stumped
man,
you on that one.
I gotta give this one to my boy Mike O'Malley, and I'm going with
Wow.
yeah,
The
yeah,
aggro crag, eh?
yeah, and Mo. We're gonna send it over to Mo. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow. I was a temple guy
but
for
also
sure.
Legends of the Hidden Temple was also great. Was great too. But
That was
I
the one, like if I was a kid, I would have wanted to be on the temple, do the temple run for sure.
yeah,
Well, the aggro crag would have been cool too. Yeah.
yeah,
I was a temple. I like temple.
yeah. Well,
Um,
okay. Well, I have a question for you now. Quick, Double Dare or what would you do?
Double Dare, I think.
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah. Do you remember the show Figure It Out?
Yeah.
I
With
remember
the
there
all
was
that cast?
yeah, but they had 2 episodes where they had WCW wrestlers on.
Did they? I don't remember seeing that. I remember
Yeah, it
Arnold
was
Schwarzenegger was on an episode of what was that show? Wild and Crazy Kids.
yeah. Oh my God, yeah,
Then they
yeah.
put him in the intro, and every episode you were like, "Oh, I
Yes,
hope it's the Arnold Schwarzenegger episode,"
I
and it
do.
never
Yeah,
was.
I vaguely remember that.
That was a good one too.
Yeah,
Did you see? Have you listened to the Mark St. John stuff? The off the
yeah.
soundboard.
They released Creatures of the Night, and then they released War Machine yesterday. And the first thing I think of when I'm listening to both of these is Jesus Christ, they play fast.
Mm-hmm.
They played so fast in that time. Like Creatures of the Night is it's like it's just completely just like shot out of a cannon. And obviously, Eric had a lot to do with that, and they're trying to kind of keep up with all the other heavier stuff that's going on at the time. But it'll definitely be interesting to listen to the whole album when it comes out.
Are you Nintendo or Sega?
Nintendo.
Cool.
Yeah, Super Mario Brothers.
So I can't go wrong.
Yeah, that the old Turtles game, like Turtles in Time. Even the Simpsons games. They had like a Simpsons game I loved to play when I was a kid. Bart's Worst Nightmare.
Yeah, Bart's Nightmare. I had
Yeah,
that too.
That, and obviously all the old WWF games.
Yeah.
But then it was like, then PlayStation came out, and I didn't care about Nintendo until like GameCube. I
Cool.
was strictly a PlayStation guy.
Yeah. Other than our channel, is there anything that, like, do you go on anybody else's channels? Do you have your own thing going on? Is there anywhere else we can find you?
No, I show up on grants every so often. We did the two Kiss videos. Well, actually, did you do the soundboard
No,
video?
you guys did off the soundboard of one of those, and then you and I did a bootleg show where I showed off a
Okay,
bunch of my bootlegs.
I think it was me and John that did the off the soundboard with Grant. So I'll occasionally show up on his. 2022 has been a very, very crazy year for me, both good and bad. So it kind of got to a point where I couldn't really do as much anymore because I was dealing with like a whole slew of just other stuff in my life. I'm at a place now where I feel like I kind of have a little bit more me time. So that's why I was excited to participate in the video a couple weeks ago. And when you had hit me up to do this, obviously I jumped on. I was excited just to talk about whatever, because when I saw you first started doing this, you were doing it with guys that have other channels, and I was like, I don't have anything to like promote or anything. But then I saw you did a video with somebody else who doesn't really do stuff, and you guys just talked or anything like that. So, but I would love to start doing something. It's just I'm having a hard time just figuring out what, I realize that even if it's something that I feel is niche, there has to be a market out there, has to be a demographic out there for it. Figuring out something, kind of morphing my interests of, music and professional wrestling and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Well, it was fantastic to have you on the show.
Thank you.
A lot of folks at home might not know about the Kiss videos because a lot of them were early on in the Patreon days where we were doing like Patreon exclusive videos.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many of those are public, but maybe I should just start dropping those.
I think the Carnival of Souls one is public.
Yeah, that was a good one.
But I don't think the Dynasty one that me, you, and Joe did. And then I don't think the very first Elder video we did is public either.
Yeah, we like redid it with the panel. That was like one of our first panels.
Yeah, we did it, and then like a couple weeks later we did the panel. I remember. So
yeah, I'm gonna maybe start dropping those, making them public, and maybe that's something we could revisit. That not even just albums. We were doing albums, but we could do topics. You know what I mean? Like Mark St. John versus Vinnie Vincent, just stuff like that. Me and you could talk about Kiss all day.
Yeah,
I'd love to do that again.
That's the great thing about this band is that there's the topics that you can talk about are absolutely endless.
Yeah, and your room tour videos, are those still public?
They're on my YouTube page. Yeah. They are. And then they're also, if you're subscribed to your Patreon, I do know that I believe that the links are available through the Patreon as well.
There's somewhere there. If you don't mind, why don't you send those to me and I'll post them in the link or I'll post the links in the descriptions if folks want to check out your basement, if you don't mind sharing it publicly.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, no, it's definitely something that I'm proud of in terms of showing off the collection and everything. That funny thing is that my dad had gotten more stuff and had to like rearrange a bunch of stuff, and I was like, I'm not doing another video. Like, I was like, I'm not doing another video because you moved like a whole wall around. I was like, I'll get to it maybe somewhere down the line.
Absolutely. Is there anything else left unsaid that you wanna mention?
Elder is still no.
Yeah, no. Are you looking forward to that Casablanca movie that's coming out?
You know what? I will watch that movie if we can do a video on it, because I feel like it's not going to be good.
I will watch that movie if I can find where it is.
Is it even out yet?
I don't know.
I don't think it's out yet, but I saw the clip that they released of them playing Rock and Roll All Night and them they're wearing makeup that's not even close to what the...
You know what? Have you saying that? I thought the same. When I saw that clip, I was like, this is going to be a joke. And then I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, okay, the trailer seemed to be a step up from what I saw in that clip. That clip was
Yeah.
like, this looks like zero budget. But the trailer actually kind of looked not bad. So maybe they were earlier in production or something. But yeah.
Apparently it comes out at the end of the month.
Okay, right on. Yeah, maybe we should go watch that, and you can check out Bret on when we do another Kiss Corner thing, and maybe we'll be talking about that movie. So
Yeah.
all right, Bret,
Absolutely.
thanks a lot. Thanks for being you've been a subscriber and a supporter and a friend for a long time. So I'm glad we got to sit down and chat with you for a bit.
I appreciate you having me on. It means a lot.
Yeah, it was a little bit more loose this episode, but I had a lot of fun chatting with you, and we'll see you around.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, take care.
See you later.